we're not even a year into ChatGPT. And we're already going, why isn't anybody wanting this? Well, the adoption curve for the internet was a lot longer than a year.
Yeah. Let me probe that idea for a second. So, can we say it took 20 years for the internet to take over?
Take over?
Take over. So like 95 to 2015.
I would say 10.
Yeah, I mean, definitely by the time the iPhone came out.
Yeah, but okay.
Well, there were still catalogs. I guess there was still the paper versus internet.
High-speed internet changed things, though. Like, everybody had access to, cable.
So
that was a turning point for me.
That's about 2015 to 2018, depending on where you're at. But when did the internet really start? Like, when did people start using the internet? And I would say the mid 90s is when people started getting
definitely
access.
I remember, I was in college when I finally got access to, my dad had it for his business, but we weren't allowed to use it. But I remember so I was in college and I remember going to the computer lab and being like, how do I get on the internet? And so he showed me, and then I was like, okay, now what do I do?
Okay.
And they were like,
go back to playing solitaire.
Yeah. They were like, that's it, that you're on. That's right. it.
So it took about 20 years for the internet to take over, give or take, and then we can, we could argue all day on that. But then cell phones, from the moment the iPhone came out in 2007 to when it was pretty much in every household, was about 5 years. So how many years do you think? And people adapted really well to a cell phone. And so if you think about why people started rotating over to cell phone or smartphones instead of feature phones. I feel like it's gonna be a similar situation because the people are literally being left out. You can't communicate in the same way on a feature phone, which is just like a standard T9, as you can on a smartphone, and you're not gonna be able to interact with reality in the same way if you don't use AI as opposed to somebody who does. And I feel like with the way it's moving, because we talked about the training nodes or whatever you call it, went from 1.5 billion with 3.5 to 1.7 trillion, and then we've got another 10 trillion to go, but that's not going to take 5 years.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that generational kind of I talked a whole bunch without even asking anything. Sorry. So do you think that people will be able to not pick it up?
No, see, that's just it. It's kind of like anybody that says, I'm not going to use the internet today, they have no choice. Everything is tied to the internet.
Yeah.
Every app, everything that you do, your lock on your house in a lot of cases, everything is tied. It's just going to be, I think the biggest adoption is going to just be because. And it's just everything that you're going to have is going to have some type of algorithm that helps make it a little bit smarter. Mm-hmm. And it's not that everything's using ChatGPT. It's going to be small, incremental, like mini LLMs, kind of that are hyper-focused on helping you with something in particular. Mm-hmm. And you're just not going to know the difference between what you were doing in the past and this. I think it was a stark difference between print and internet. And I'm just using print as what we were before, or analog versus digital.
Yeah.
Digital now to AI, I think it'll be blurred. I don't think we'll know that we're using AI. It's just my phone just asked me if I want to go to this one place because it's on my calendar. Mm-hmm. It just does it, and I'll be delighted, but I'm not like, finally I made it to the AI generation.
I can see that, yeah. No, I agree with what you're saying there. I can totally see that, yeah. Well, and technically Alexa and all those things,
that is AI. It's just been it's more. It's not this generative.
Yeah, we're talking about generative specifically.
Yeah.
I can't see a world where if you're employed that you don't start utilizing AI in some way, shape, or form in the very, very near future.
But I think you're also looking at it, I think the three of us here, I'm always looking at what's next, what should I be on the, that 50,000 foot view is very important to me, but I don't think everybody thinks that way. I think some people just kind of, they go to their job, they do their job, they come home. And so that's going to be the big, this is going to be a first mover game. And so that's where there's a lot of opportunity here for people to, jump in, be a part of the AI, movement. Mm-hmm. They could, you could easily, bump ahead, especially the younger generation, I think, that are coming out and trying to make a name for themselves. This is definitely a way to do that.
Well, okay, so let me run this by you guys and see. and see if this jives with you. So as a business, G Squared does mobile sports. We're a help desk. We use a knowledge base, which is basically a data set, to do a good job as a help desk, and it's one of our like it's a pride and joy to us is to be good with data, and not just the numbers data, but the informational aspect of data as well. And so as we look to the future, which sure that we're looking to the future now, but the future will be here pretty quick. Yep. And so in 6 months, I can take G Squared from a people-centric help desk to an AI-centric help desk with people support. And like, we'll just say we've got 30 people on the help desk now. I won't need 30 people on the help desk after. So what are they going to do? Am I going to let them go? I don't think so, because I think I've got other jobs for them to do. Because if I can decrease my revenue, or if I can increase productivity without decreasing revenue, then what am I going to do with that extra revenue? Am I going to put it back into the company? Am I going to change, or am I going to reassign some of these jobs to grow the business in a better way? Are some of these jobs going to naturally transfer to trainers, revisioneers, or whatever you want to call them, like the people who work with the AI to make sure that it's telling people the right thing, that the data looks good, and all this other kind of stuff? And so, if that's the case, where I could do that in 6 months, like, what's going to stop a Fortune 500 business from doing that same thing in a 3-year period once they determine that they can actually accomplish that? Because, like, enterprise projects are way, way bigger than, my 50-person company projects for sure. But the money savings is always going to drive the pursuit, so to speak. And I feel like everybody's going to be feeling that pretty soon.
Yeah. And, there's a difference between what I think is the personal adoption versus the business or corporate. Like, corporate has to do this.
Yeah.
They have to go out. The person, though, is going to choose one app or another, and they're going to, over some point, they're going to be like, oh, the one that's AI powered or has these other aspects to it, I'll choose that one. So I think there's a difference there. I will say this, though. This is the part that I think is the initial scare. Is it's what we, you can call it the dumbbell approach or the dumbbell phenomenon, which is there's going to be things at two ends. There's no middle class anymore. The middle class has to make the decision whether to embrace or not embrace. And if you embrace, you get to go up the food chain on salary. If not, you're going down. There's going to be jobs at both ends. There's not going to be a lot of jobs in the middle.
I agree.
You do?
Yeah, and we've been seeing that for years, and
well, it's been happening.
I've worked for several Fortune 500 companies, and over the years, I've seen what I would call the middle management, the directors, senior directors, managers that kind of merge into one lane. And so, however you title that, but those jobs are merging into one lane, and so people are preparing for that already. You just won't need as many people in that management lane. It doesn't make sense to have managers reporting to you have one direct report, and then everybody's a manager or a director or whatever, however you want to put that. So I think we are already seeing that.